All right, my brother. Shalom, shalom, shalom. I see you back on board, huh?
Shalom. Yes. Made room
uh,
for me.
all right, all right. We'll let you go in. I see you prayed the ticket. You got your ticket. Now you're here, huh?
Yes, sir.
You
Yes,
just
sir.
think you got a front row ticket though. You got courtside seats there, huh?
Oh, I thought you had me in the suitcase.
They had you up there in the bleachers somewhere, you know.
Yes,
But
sir.
yeah, yeah. Praise Yah, praise Yah. All of the in the room.
Praise Yah.
Those are in the room are coming into the room, and we are ready to launch. I think so. Anyway, I guess I almost blew it. I hit it and didn't forgot to put some things out. But we here, and I guess that's what's important in that. So just honoring the Father and thanking Him for all that He is doing. Glad to again to have you back again. I'm sure we was trying to that we may figure out some different things, but I know that you'll be having a different schedule and later on for a little bit, so we may want to see how we want to do that, but we'll figure that out. We still got maybe a week, I guess, huh? Next week, I guess you can. After next week, I guess, huh? Looking at the calendar there, in that. So praise Yah. It's all right. It's all right. In that. So continue to build. Want to continue to pray for one another in everything, in our recovery of our health, and to that the Father be strengthening us and continue to overcome those things. So also, I guess I think I was talking to you earlier. I always pick those titles that is a wide range of things. So one of the things is, according to its context, we're talking about overcoming our past mistakes, and so whether those things are being a mistake, and then there's something that different between something literally being done versus that of a mistake. And then how do we handle a mistake in that? I was talking. I think I talked to you earlier about I had went to pick up an order from Sam's, and when I was doing that, we had all the right things. Normally, I count the items, and then you go in and this is just on. We'll build from here, I guess. Start on those things that are natural. I went and, of course, to pick up the order, the guy brought it out. And so normally I just get in to count the items, but I call it myself pulling out my phone and checking, making sure all the items was there. Right? And somehow there was an item that was missed. Right? And as we think about mistakes, we want to also think about that everything that we do, it sort of involves someone else. So even though we make those decisions, they still make it involves someone else. According to what you're doing, mistakes can be a final situation, and others can be corrected. You know. So as I thought I had everything, and I could have, so I went home, and as we unpack, as I unpacked those things, I realized that it was something missing. So of course, my wife asked me about that, and so she made a call, and of course, no one picked up on that end. So I decided to go back. So I went back, and of course, I told the gentleman that this is what I was missing, and it was on the shelf. In the shelf that were like the guy that took all of our stuff out of it was just in that spot. So it was there, and a lot of times I don't like to go back like that because, I only go back if that's the truth. If I really really was missing something, not trying to game, right? Only if I was missing something. But that part of it, in a sense, made me feel good. And so as I was driving back, I was telling Geraldine that I got it, and then I also mentioned, I said, that was a mistake on my end as well. But the mistake started on someone else's end, and that's the guy that brought the stuff out to me as well. He did not wake up this morning and said that soon as I get this order, I'm going to not put this item in there, right? So he felt like he had everything. I felt like I had everything. And through all of that, then it was a mistake being made, right? So sometimes when we make those mistakes, according to what we're doing, it could affect someone else in that. So the mistake is always, when we think about it, it's always an action. I think I was telling you about that. You can make a mistake and misjudgment. So it's always that miss on that end of it, right? The decision that we make, it can be an error or a fault, a blunder, or whatever. It could be, results in misunderstanding. So mistakes can, when we use that word, it can always run into something. And I think sometimes my falter is, well, I try to put things in this right category when it comes to say mistakes. When does a mistake go over? And I think I was talking to you over to something that's literally been done on purposely, that is no longer a mistake. Do we call everything a mistake? Is everything a mistake? Is when you sin, is that a mistake? So is that a mistake or is it literal? So all of those things are in that, because it is situational, and it can be corrected, right? And so we looking at the mistakes that's unintentional mistakes. This is what we looking at. So you always have to have a handle onto that. You can have mistakes that intentionally done, in that. Well, it would be a mistake then, but I guess what I'm saying is it can appear to others to be a mistake as well. So one of the things that we don't want to do is try to figure out, and it's very difficult because our what I want to say that we look at it, if somebody does it more than once, then really was it a mistake, in that. And so we'll kind of build on that situation as we go along. I'm just trying to throw some of those things out on that, because it's part of our experience in life. Say you will, without a doubt, you will make a mistake. But that's part of the process. So I want us to think about the process of life, because most times it's part of the process. And I think sometimes we get stuck in the mistake. The mistake can get into our feelings, and it can cause you not to go on, though. It can cause you not to go on. And that's where we don't want to do. But we want to be able to build in several ways how we can learn from this mistake. Now, we have used that language like learn from your mistakes. We can put that out there. But what does that look like, though? Learn from your mistake. Okay. So we'll get into some more of that. But before I get any deeper on that, we were discussing something earlier when you was making your journey to the house. Do you remember sort of the things that you was reflecting on at the end there about mistakes, and when you was talking about how when we learning from somebody or picking up from somebody else or something like that? Do you remember that part?
Shalom. Um, um, are you referring to how I had said something about having to make a mistake to learn from it?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, sir. I remember that piece. Just in the sense that over time I had to learn that in the pursuit of growing and wanting to excel in the things of the Father, it wasn't about never making mistakes. And in my mindset, I had it in my mind that I to excel, I wasn't going to make any mistakes. And then over time, I started to realize like that's how you learn. Like you
Mm-hmm.
learn from those mistakes. And now that's even something I've learned a lot from you is that um, pretty much like if you're in a relationship, when two people are learning to work together, you know, they're establishing their boundaries and things like that. And however those things happen, well, when somebody, uh, how can I say, when someone makes an error in the relationship or whatever like that, it can be explained or it can be how can I say, you're going to talk about it. But if the same thing keeps coming up over and over and over again, now it's going to get to this point where it was where we were in our conversation before is where now it would be explained as I've explained this to you before. So no, if it happens again, is it still a mistake now that I have the knowledge that what the offense was or what the boundary line was or whatever it was that was done? When is it now an intentional action versus something you no longer, you know, had any knowledge on before? Is that the part you were speaking about?
Yes, I know we talked about several things, and yes, that's a good point for us to launch at, and so I'm glad you really brought that up because once the mistake comes, and it is something that we have to get past. So, like you were saying, we're thinking about okay, the self reflection of the mistake that we made. So most times it may not be like a wrong or right. So we need to identify, right, what caused that mistake, right? So according to what it is, sometimes it can be corrected on the spot, or something like that. If you're working on a car, you put the wrong bolt on something, then you can correct that. So as we go higher in relationship and responsibility to one another, then we have to make sure that we are willing to reflect on that. In your mistakes, we need to make sure that we take responsibility for it, you know. And so when we make that mistake, we just don't automatically blame somebody else for that, right? Some external thing made me do this when you are the one that made the mistake. In that. So this is how we'll get over those past mistakes, and that we won't, continue to do that. So because it'll be in our behavior. So like you said, okay, let's learn from that, and then it sometimes even if somebody else is involved, we can see their particular feedback on the situation too, right? To make sure that okay, how did you look at it? If we have say offended someone else in this process of making a mistake like that, and it can you can build on that because we have to be able, especially those of us that are following the Most High, we have to be able to be willing to understand that it was a mistake, though. you know so if we embrace that, we'll realize when we go back to this term of learning from our mistake, then we are embracing the growth because this is what we're doing. We are growing to not to make the same mistake again. Okay, that is our goal in that, to do that. And so in order for us not to get back to this place of this mistake, and you can fill in the blank, and especially when those things, and right now I'm talking about maybe more relationship there, that we are continual to learn. Okay, like we make the statement, because I'm trying to deal with this statement of learn from your mistake, and then immediately somebody said, well, why do you do that again? Did you learn from that mistake? Well, it's a lot of pieces to that. The puzzle is a little bigger than that. And some of the things that I'm saying here is that we have to continue to learn, continue to embrace these things to make sure, if you're talking about the same mistake, if it's a different mistake, is it a bigger mistake? What caused this mistake to happen, right? And so we are learning from those things, and it's a process. We have to realize that a process. We have to develop in those things. We have to be patient, right, with one another, and when we're dealing with one another's mistakes, be persistent and to make sure that we are focused, and then, like you were saying, that to share those experiences, right? When we make a mistake, okay, it is to build us, but nothing we do in covenant is never just to build us, but it's also to build someone else, right? So we always have those things in that. So all of those things will be there. So we are learning from those, and we are growing as we go in our mistakes. And it will help us to get over our past mistakes if people are involved in it, situations may be involved. But if they be easier, say if you did it to somebody or transgress some through a mistake you transgress, then it'd be easier. It's easier for us to forgive, about that according to what it is and how we can build on that, right? So that's very, very important to overcoming those mistakes. So when I was thinking about this, I also said, now, what caused me? I always start with me, right? What caused me to make the same mistake, though? What we seem to be the same mistake, right? And then when does it come from? It's a lack of learning from that mistake, because they have always told me learn from your mistakes, but nobody explained to me, okay, because I'm trying to say, okay, does that mean that I never do it again? What does that mean, though? Does that mean that I get better? So as I grew in, start growing in life and growing in the things of the Father, knowing the character of the Father, I realized that it is something that we need in order to help us to grow. So what is it that what was it that caused me to find myself in that same place of mistake again? Right? What was it? So what happened to me, or what happened to us, or whatever, I'm gonna use me again. What happened to me is the mistake didn't look the same, right? If it's situational, it had the same. Because I learned from that, but it came a different way. And so when it came a different way, that way I wasn't prepared for. So I end up making the same mistake at the end of it because I didn't look at it and guard it as a whole. So I end up making the same mistake again because that mistake came in a different way. And so maybe if I would, when I took it, I would examine the mistake that I made and then put in my heart to look at the whole and realize that, this is like before when I made that mistake. What it did was, my brother, is it ran into my habits, or it ran into my behavior, and that behavior was a habit. So the mistake was I made, sometimes it was tied to my habit. So that's what's going to cause me to make another mistake again, because it was already a habit. I had to deal with the habit in order not to make that mistake again. So they say learn from my mistake. Okay, I was learning from the mistake I made, but I had to deal with the habit, right? Because the habit and the mistake was clashing. So it came out, it's just a habit that I did. So I kept doing it, whatever that was. I'm trying to leave it open where people can think of things in their life. I kept doing it because it was a habit. Now I have to deal with it, right? I have to deal with it. So what I'm trying to also say, and like I was trying to express earlier, is sometimes mistakes, then there's things that attach to it. There are things to attach to it. So a lot of things in life, I just want to drop this too, is a lot of things is tied to something that we trying to get free from. But unless we address the things that it's tied to, it's going to be hard for us to be free from, right? It's going to be hard for us to do that because it become a habit to us. And so sometimes it's the same pattern. So in order for me not to make that, learn from my mistake, I have to deal with that habit and change that pattern that habit has already formed in me in order to make that same mistake again. And so that's what I need to do now. I need to address whether I keep doing this over and over again. But what causes me to get to this point here? How did I get here again? Because I'm making the same mistake in that. So sometimes it could be the surroundings, it could be the timing of it, it can be just the situation. And now I need to realize that okay, the only way that I'm going to learn from this is address this habit, because this habit is causing me to make this same mistake, and I want to be able to learn from that. And so it can be something that when we preparing ourselves thinking about mistakes, some of those things are unseen. You can't really see them, but we want to prepare ourselves for them. So I guess I said all that to say now I have to deal with the habit. How can I break the habits of that? There are different things that are tied to it. So now something is tied to the habit. How did it become a habit? You know, and so now I have to really, really address really what the root of it is. So sometimes we deal with the symptoms, but we never get to the root of it, right? So when we're thinking about it, we're trying to get to the root of it, you know. And once you get to the root and you deal with the root, and then if you can, destroy those roots of it, then it will slowly die. So then we start being overcomers of that past mistake, right? Because we dealt with it. Not so much as I did it and it keeps coming up. Why did it keep coming up? I did it and it keeps coming up. We need to overcome it by getting it to the roots of it and getting the understanding of it. Is that I know I kind of slid a lot in there, and I'm so glad that you're here again, my brother. Is that coming across right, or what are you thinking about that? What I just said. You're always there to help me.
Praise God. Yes, sir. I believe I understand you're keeping it open so that each person can apply to themselves appropriately. And I think a lot of what you said does blanket the situation with an understanding, at least a point. What was always coming out to me, and I think you just hit it right there at the end, was a place of origin. And like you said, what was it that caused this to be a mistake? Like when did it? Now it's a habit.
Hmm.
This thing that you're doing. Um, and for me, it has to be something that is in the area of it's recognized. It's not something you think is wrong. It is wrong.
Hmm.
you know.
Hmm.
So like what you're saying definitely helped me out a lot because like you said, is what is it connected to? When you asked that question, I had a light bulb moment. In the sense of where it became where the roots, where the roots started growing for this bad habit. And I mean, for some, it could have been in childhood. For some, it could have been all these other places. But I really think what you're saying is coming across, especially when you brought it up in the sense of in guarding. You made it like, okay, well, am I guarding whatever this area is in my life? And a lot of what you said really helped me. It's like in the sense of if it was important to me in the beginning, then maybe I wouldn't have had this bad habit now, which
Hmm.
is causing
Hmm.
me to have all these mistakes. And I know sometimes people use a term like setting fences. Well, sometimes we set broken fences, and
Hmm.
I think
Hmm.
that has a lot to do with why it becomes habitual. It's because we put our guard in the wrong area. So I was listening to what you were saying, and definitely it start the the dots are connecting. The load screen has gone away.
Yeah, yeah.
So I definitely am on board, and I believe the family definitely be resonating with us right now as far as understanding how we got here in terms
Right.
of
Okay.
making
Right.
those changes.
I think you said a power up moment. I think we can probably close. What you said was this. You said that we build fences, but they got holes in them, right? And
Yes, sir.
that means that most times, if you don't build it solid enough, something can get in, right? And I want to connect to your statement. And this statement is before you build the fence, make sure that you got the root out, though, right? Don't build a fence around the wrong thing. And that's what happens to us is we build a fence around the wrong thing to try to, to try to guard it. But what we have to do is make sure that what we are putting a fence around is something that you really want to keep, in that. Because most times the fence is there to protect us, and this what we are using, right? And
Hallelujah.
yes, and so if, like you said, if it's there or if it has holes in it or whatever, but I done seen so many times that I put the fence around something that was not right, right, and it's hard for something else to get in because whatever it is, it may be something I'm thinking about or my teaching, my doctrine, whatever it might be. You know, if I build the wrong fence, I want to stay there because that's what causes you to make the mistakes too, right? Is if you build and if it's solid, can't nothing get in, right? But if it's broken, like you said, something definitely can get out. So in this, we have to understand that when we're talking about those mistakes that we are making and then overcoming those mistakes, you really, really have to think about, really how did I get to that spot? You had to take out time to say, how did I get to that spot? Right. And cover all the areas. Because when I end up back there, right, uh, then I feel bad, you know. And anyone that really cares, and like I said, if you talking about somebody, we ain't talking about that person just literally doing something though, we talking about the honest mistake, that didn't have no other motive behind it, maybe but to do good, right? That's what this is mistake I'm talking about. The motive to do good in that, and in the process, the mistake was being made, right? And so sometimes we tie mistakes, okay, with things that are not good, right? But we have to make sure though that those in the proper category, right? We talking about good mistakes, and then when you're talking about a mistake that wasn't good, what category did that go in, right? And I'm talking about with one another, talking about one another, in that, if we made a mistake, don't put the gas cap on, when you come from the get, you know what I'm saying? You forget to, I didn't see them where they put gas in their car and they forget to put the handle back and they break out. Have you seen something like that before? They be driving down the road with it stuck in the, in that. Well, that's a mistake. It's going to be cost you, right? That's the things mistake. But I want our mind to think more now as we talking about this as in relationships and those things and how those come about because it could be a simple mistake and sometimes in order for those not to happen again, to let it go. Now, even though that, if I go back to my situation with, say, when I went to Sam's, if I went back to that, uh, it was a overlook. So what can I do the next time? Okay, this is I had thought about this just for it's amazing just for the teaching, I guess. But this time, the next time I would go, and most time, of course, we know that my wife is recovering, but most times she'll check it. I just count. What I want. I'm relaxing it. Where I shouldn't be, I guess. But okay. But the next time, let me get to my point. The next time, I probably would go item by item. If I look at it, if it says, say hamburger, then I look at it, okay, hamburger. If it says can of peas, instead of a glance. Now I know what happened. The thing that I was looking at was similar in color to the item that I went to go get, right? It was similar in color. So that's what happened. So now that on the natural, I'm using a natural now mistake, of course. But that mistake now, so that's what I'm gonna take on, right? Now, if I went item by item, if I went item by item this last time, with the okay, like I said, hamburger. If I did it like that instead of okay, I got that. Okay, that little boom, So now, if I want to be assured, because it's going to cost me to go back, I had to drive back. That's more gas, all of those things, right? And then, but if I do that, then my mistake should be less. So now I have a plan for my mistake. If I'm with, if I go to pick it up, right? So I could still miss something, but I had a plan for it. And so now I can move forward, in that. Now what the problem is, and I'm taking something in the natural. What the problem is now, that could have went a whole nother route. Now here's the route that could have went. And in the past, in my life, it could have went this way. Now, here's the route that it could have went. I'm a kind of make this story up as well as my life. Okay, so it ain't necessarily I did this, but we'll as we go. Here's what could have happened. When I got back, I could have said, "Oh, we missing something." What you mean we missing something? I got everything. I knew everything that was in there. Okay. So now I said, "Well, where'd you put it? Did you put it down?" So me and my wife could be going at it now, right? Oh, did you put it? No, I put it in there. I counted it. I know I counted it before I left, right? And so I know that. I said I checked it. Well, you couldn't have checked it because it's not here. Oh, it's here. You call them. Well, call them then, and I see. And then, well, I can't call them in this case. I can't get a hold to him. I said, well, I can go down there, but I know what I counted. So I go there and I tell the man, I said, well, I'm down here because my wife said that I left something. Now he don't even know my wife, right? And so now I'm into my feelings, and so I say, well, can you check and see if the soap is in there? It was the dish soap. Matter of fact, he said, can you check and see if it's in there? I say, here it is. Now I'm mad. I said, well, why didn't the guy give it to him? See, because I'm gonna put it off for him now, right? Because now I'm in shame now because I did leave it. So why didn't he check those things? That is his job. Can I speak to the manager? It's his job to make sure that those things was right. If he would have been, I got it. So the manager come. Then I explained to the manager, I had to spend my gas and I was busy. I worked from the house and I'm busy doing something. I had to stop what I was doing and come down there, bada. And so now I got to drive all the way back home. And knowing that I forgot that. And so I get back in that, so, and it's all it would take is, I thought you counted everything. Well, I did count it. Well, if you did count everything, then the man wouldn't have had it. And boom, boom, boom. And now it's an uproar, right? It's a whole different situation here altogether, right? Whole different situation over the mistake, right? Over a simple mistake. And so, and I have learned to make sure that I don't jump out like that. No way, because it's just life. In life, you can miss something. You can do all of those things. But if we go into the blame game, then it affects everything around us. Then we find ourselves in the situations that we should not have, and then we have to back all that up. And found out that even though I checked it, that it was not so. you know. But the more peaceful route is the more route that what I did is go back and check. I checked the car out because I thought it might have even failed, say behind the seat or something, right? You know, and so I want to make sure that if I go back to make sure that those things was there. So I just took a natural thing in perspective of how mistakes can go. They can go in the fact that okay, I got my item back, good. That's all I wanted. I go back because it really we have to sometimes accept some of the blame in mistakes. Now I'm switching dealing with people, right? We have to really take some of that. And that's another thing. It's not all the person, you know. In anything that you do, any offending or anything that you do, it's always one. It's always two people that can take part in that in order to make it better. So when you come with that attitude, then you can realize that this is what I want to do. Oh, Shelly that broke out in she done broke out and bow up. Yeah, she had a badge that she come give you a hug. So that's what so that's what we need to do to break those things up, right? To make sure that I forgot what I was saying. She threw me off, boy. Praise Yah, hallelujah. But the thing is how you address those situations. I'm trying to look at my notes here to make sure. So we talked about how we reflect in, get your feedback that you needed, and then make that adjustment. Right in your mistakes, is very important that you make the right judgment in that. And I had a scripture, Proverbs 28:13, and I couldn't pull it up. I could, I guess if I went over here, I could pull that up. But if those of you that have your scriptures, you could look at it. Proverbs 28:13, I think is what I want. He who hides his transgression does not prosper, right? But he who confess, this is something what we got to do, have to confess it and forsake it, right? Them, then he finds some compassion for that. So what we want to do is we cannot hide those things of mistake. I'm running back to people again. It's not because you won't prosper into that. But one of those things we must realize that okay, I made this mistake, and then when it says forsake that mistake, that's where we find ourselves in examining, reflecting what's going to be the proper method to make sure we don't make this mistake again. And then when we do that, we seem to find compassion with people, right? We will find compassion on that. But it can go a whole different way if you don't own up to it. Because sometimes in that process, now the second example I gave you, where I'm talking about you coming back, then there has to be, that have to be cleaned up real good. That has to be cleaned up. So in that, so I think that it's going to take time sometimes. I think that according to what it is, and I want to really leave those of us that are here and will be listening it has to be context now. It has to be context. In that. So when people holler, "Oh, I made a mistake," then make sure, like I said before, we have to define it. Is it a mistake or is it something else? Right? in that. So coming over the things of the past in that. And so sometimes it takes communication. It said, okay, you know, you did this in the past. So one of the things is I wanted to leave us to is when you go from mistakes, I think I put it down somewhere. When you go from being a mistake or somebody literally doing something, that judgment can be different from person to person looking at the situation. Always go in the form of mercy because you're gonna need mercy too. Don't treat nobody like you'll never need mercy again. You're gonna need mercy too. So always remember that. Somewhere down the line you're gonna need mercy too. So so once they making a true effort to correct that, that's another thing that I don't put. If they making a true effort to correct it, then it can appear to the person that they are doing the right thing. You know, even though we might fall into that, you can say I'm taking these steps to correct it, and I end up doing it again. And so when does it come from a mistake to something else is depending on its context, depending on what the situation is and who's involved. It can look different from married, it can look different from singles, it can look different from children. And when I say look different, according to what the situation is, you know, and what we are discussing on tonight. Because I'm leaving it open because I think it will be better impressed upon your heart because what the mistakes you done and what I done, and then what we could take to do that. So, brother, you want to jump right in on that, or something that was being said?
Praise God. Yeah, you got me taking some notes.
It,
Praise God. Oh wow. Wow, that was a lot. So that that story you gave us about the going to the store, and how one mistake led to another, and next thing you know, you got this whole mess. That really helped me understand some things for myself for sure, and it really made me look at it, especially when you drop the Mishle, the proverb on that, in the sense of okay, here's the wisdom is telling us how to handle it, like what you were saying. Um, it really got me. It still is in my mind. But what really screams out is in that situation where I thought many of us could find ourselves, and I know I've definitely put myself there. When it comes down to whether I should have checked the list or I should have counted or whatever, what got me into trouble was the fact that I just assumed, and
mm-hmm.
then when I assumed, I couldn't own up to my assumption. So I had to deflect my assumption and make it someone else's fault. And then now I'm upset that I was wrong. So now it's pride.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So now I need to cover myself, but at the same time, because I can't cover myself because I'm not being honest. So there was so much to it that was just on another level. It's just so real in the sense of I like what you said about finding mercy because that's actually what my last note was like. Okay, well, if I don't own up to the mistake, can I find mercy? Because now I've got this open-ended problem. I've got to make up with, like you said in your story. I've got to make up with my wife. Now
Mm-hmm.
the guy at the store doesn't know I blamed him for everything. Now the manager doesn't know that now I'm saying he can't manage or whatever. I mean, he hired the person, so I'm technically saying his employees making him look bad, but he, there's so many levels to it. Versus like if I look at it from the perspective that the the wisdom you're offering is saying like, okay, well, from the beginning, I had a role. My role was just to acquire everything I was there for. It's not too hard to get out and just count, or it's not too hard to have my own list in check, so that it's easier for me in the future or down the road. And what really got me with what you were saying is sometimes we'll own up to it, but only partially.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll only
Mm-hmm.
say it's oh yeah, I'm guilty of this part, but then we'll throw that but in there. And that's one thing that got me when you're saying overcoming the mistakes. Well, I think a mistake is halfway being half honest, or not telling the whole story. So I know that that's something that definitely was eye opening for me, and it was just really really well put together, because I want to grow from this, because that's something that's in my heart. Like I said from the beginning, that's that's what's in my heart. But I've learned to become wise. You have to learn from your mistakes. But
Mm-hmm.
if you
Mm-hmm.
never consider it a mistake, how are you ever going to learn? And if you're not honest, what are you going to change? You know, it really it really stood out in on multiple levels. So I definitely can walk away and from this and learn tonight that I want to find compassion. But I realize that the compassion is going to be had with me saying I made the mistake, not you made the mistake, they made the mistake. No, I could have done something different. And, if it was my responsibility, then I'm the one that has to cover for it, instead of pushing off what I was supposed to do on other people, which I think is very easy to do. I mean, it's
Mm-hmm.
been happening since what is it, the third page of our scriptures.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
nothing very hard about that. But
Right.
I learned some things tonight, and I think what happens at the beginning, you were saying, what kind of mistake was it? And you listed off some things. You said, was it a lack of understanding? Was it lack of knowledge? And then what comes to me is what I know I've made my mistakes on, and what I've developed to care more about is valuing things.
Mm-hmm.
If I value this situation, then now I'm invested in it. And I think sometimes if you volunteer for something but you're not invested, you're doing a disservice to the person that you volunteered to serve. So that's something that I've really taken to heart. So I'm excited, for
Yeah.
what comes next.
Hallelujah. Yeah, and then the when we taking a level back up to dealing with people, it helped though that like it helps when say and I'm go back to use since it's fresh on my mind, use my wife again. My wife didn't do the blame game, so it helped me. So sometimes in our mistakes, we have to, when we looking at it, we have to see what kind of pressure was on that. She could have said, oh, you never, every time I see you down there to get something, you never do right, blah, 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 blah. And so now I'm grabbing at her, and then I'm grabbing at her, then I'm gonna go down and take it out on the other ones. When I get down on them, I'm gonna take it out on them, because now they didn't make me look bad, right? But it's quite how the situation is handled. So we have to handle our situations better. That's the reason when we're dealing with one another, other, realizing that that is a mistake, And I think I didn't say it many a times that even when say if I'm washing the dishes or something, and I leave, if I leave some food on there or something, right? It wasn't intentionally done, in that. So the person that's looking at the dishes should not come off as I'm just a knucklehead and don't know how to wash dishes, right? What I have to do is, let them know, say, well, this here wasn't clean. I mean, when I was at my job, I can't remember where I was at, but I was a dishwasher, when I was younger. And, I mean, it was all of these dishes that wasn't even clean, right, man? I guess I'm just started how to wash anyway, 16, 17, hey, well, I think it was at A&W. I used to work at that. And anyway, they so you putting all these pots and stuff back in there. Now I'm hot anyway. But there is a difference is making sure that I know how to wash dishes properly, right? And then if I still miss something, it was a mistake, right? So what I do now, and I still could miss it, but what I do now, if I'm watching something, I realize that I have to almost look at it again, right? Sometimes I'll dry them immediately, and sometimes we put them in a rack and let them dry, right? But if I dry it immediately, I can see it immediately. Sometimes, for whatever reason, maybe the water's dripping in a certain way, the light's hitting it in a certain way. I know, with forks, sometimes it gets, you might have a little piece on there that's real hard. I know none of y'all don't know what I'm talking about because y'all always clean out, but you have something on there, right? And that shouldn't bring up like an argument because it was a mistake versus they just didn't want to do it at all. So I guess I said all that to say when we dealing with one another, realize that it was a mistake. Don't go in on the person, like, wow, you always doing this and us and us. And so I can look at it the next time. Yes, you can say something, right? Say, well, man, I was getting these forks and they got food all on them. And I said, oh, okay, that's my fault. Well, I don't want the person who I'm dealing with or the company or what my job. The next time I took my time or made sure that it wasn't like that. But it does happen. So that's what I'm saying about the compassion on that. The best thing I can do is, yes, I tried my best in washing them, but they didn't come out as clean. I remember when I first got a dishwasher, I thought dishwasher is supposed to clean everything, man. So I just we take it out and just put it up. But man, you still got stuff everywhere, right? So these things you have to learn. So we have to understand in our relationships or dealing with people is they could be in a learning stage, right? So I think you had mentioned too about pride. I'm saying that mistakes is just something one verbiage that we use, but like you say, if it get into pride or get into everything else. Now in my second situation, like you said, now the manager's bad. Now I got to go there again, and he's a worker there. And when he see me, it's like, okay, this is the guy that came out here acting crazy, over one item or whatever. I'm just saying in general. And so you affect all of those around you because of the mistake that was being made you know so sometimes in our scripture that says we could cover those sins of people sometimes with love, and I'm paraphrasing here. So I guess as we end this on tonight, cover some mistakes with love. How about that? Cover some of those mistakes with love. And the gauge, I use it this way, the gauge of that, like I say, can vary from people. And I know it could be difficult, whereas when is this, especially when it comes to children, when is this a mistake or when did you not learn it or when did you didn't learn it? And sometimes we go down to different avenues trying to figure out, do they really understand? Versus say adults or whatever, versus all of those things. So we want to apply those things to our life. That's what we want to do when we're thinking about making decisions, being an encouragement, in that. And so sometimes we can cause ourselves to make mistakes with fear and then with failure, or you fear that you are going to fail, and then those can cause you too. So make sure that we can overcome the fear. And this is some of the things I'm saying connected to it. The fear of failure. The fear of failure can cause you to make a lot of mistakes, man, in that. So that needs to be addressed. So it's not so much if I'm learning how learn from your mistakes. Okay, I need to learn to make sure I don't fear in order to fail. Then I end up making a mistake again. So I have to address my fear
Power
to
up.
failure. Hallelujah, encouraging and taking those things, realizing that risks will be taken. And then embracing the right mindset. Okay, you have to embrace it's a transformation, renewal of the mind. right? So taking the right mindset and all of those things. So it's important that we acknowledge our past mistakes in order to be overcomers. And so if we can take some of these, and this is not all, this is so much more to it. So hopefully I stumbled through this to maybe help us just a little bit in our life. And I know the situation that I gave you at one time, I was that second Sam person, right? At one time. So I need to grow to the first person. Didn't fall out, didn't all of that, just went down there. And so that means that I could grow. But in that, I still could learn. I learned from being that second person to being the first example that I made. And then, even in the first example, I still have to learn something. I have to make sure maybe I do item per item. Just take out time and do item by item. I'm already just picking it up. What else can I do? That's going to take up a lot of my time, I guess. Item by item. My brother, any last final words as we get ready to part?
I just love that verse you quoted about a multitude of love covers a multitude. So I just think that that's awesome. Let's cover the shame, cover the reproach, cover the things that you would want covered for yourself
Yes,
instead
yes.
of highlighting it and exposing someone.
Okay.
You know.
Yeah, yeah. See, you started something again. You know what you be doing, right? Okay. Here's the thing. Is don't don't please practice. Please let us practice not exposing to cover, right? Let's cover one another. It's easy to expose somebody's faults, right? But let's do the character of the Mashiach as well. Let's cover some things. He said we can do those things, right? Let's cover some things. We don't have to be there. Let love flow somehow, you could be blessed is the one that fear Elohim, in that. So it is very, very important in that. So, all right, my brother. Well, thanks everybody that's still hanging in there with us, and those of you that are watching, maybe you're not in the chat room, but you hopefully that this has given us something that we can maybe chew on just a little bit, even in our examples and in life in general. And I think. One of the things that me and you was talking about is life lessons, and it's always better. It's not in the book, but it's in the person that you see because that's the person that you deal with. Listen, you read the book, right? But the book is not alive, right? It's not alive. But when I'm talking to you, when I'm touching you, when I'm relating to you, you are alive, right? So somehow it has to come from the book to something that is dead to bring it to something that is alive to the people. So that's the reason we have to be an example to one another in that, right? Examples to one another. All right, my brother. All right. Shalom to the whole house of Israel. Hallelujah.